Heartland Sports with Luke Randall.
Lots of baseball today all around the country, and today in Marion, teams from all around the world were coming into Mountain Dew Park for the Colt World Series. Action-packed start to the tournament. On Thursday, they had a welcome dinner, photo shoots. This was cool. They had a home run derby won by Marion's Hayden Harris, and a fastest runner competition, who could basically run the bases the quickest. Then on Friday, there were the first games, lots of fireworks after the conclusion of that. Today, more games. We're into the meat of the tournament right here, including the Champions game. It features special needs athletes. They get to go through a high five tunnel, take some at-bats, and run around the bases with the players from the Colt World Series. Pretty cool experience. 4 games today, and we are not done just yet. To start the day, Marion defeated Bay County, Michigan to stay alive in the tournament. Youngstown, Ohio, dominant win over Japan. Germany and Puerto Rico, they went 12 innings. Puerto Rico took it in the 12th. And tonight, Southern Illinois, the hometown kids trailing the reigning champions of this competition. Monterrey, Mexico leads 1-0 in the third. Down in Ocala, Florida, the Babe Ruth World Series starting up today. We have 2 representatives from the Heartland, the Charleston Fighting Squirrels and the Griffin Seams Revelers. Only the Squirrels play today. They played Stamford, Connecticut, and they were down early. Ended up getting a big win, 12-2. Squirrels start strong. Revelers will play Asia Pacific tomorrow at 12:30. Back to baseball in a moment, but first, former SEMO basketball player Josh Early. We talked about him signing a pro contract to play in Europe last week, and another former Red Hawk continuing his pro basketball career. Today, Chris Harris, the former SEMO star, signing with the team in Hungary. Harris was instrumental in helping SEMO reach its second ever NCAA tournament in 2023. He had 26 in the championship game to cap off a legendary OVC title run from the Red Hawks. He's been playing pro ball ever since, first in Switzerland, then in England, now in Hungary. Harris also does a ton of work in the community with his C5 Skills Academy right here in Cape. Here's that Cardinals score. The Redbirds started up a little bit over an hour ago in San Diego, 4-4 right now, in the fourth actually. A win would get them back to 500. Another MLB game that was going on tonight, the Speedway Classic in Bristol. And it did start after about a 3-hour delay. We got through just about all of the first inning, but the rain did not relent in Bristol, Tennessee. The game has been postponed, and it will resume tomorrow at noon. Turning to tomorrow, a pickleball tournament is coming to Cape. Freedom Fitness hosting the SEMO Showdown. It's an elite competition that is expected to feature some of the best players locally. Jonathan Moore, one of them. He's also the GM of the venue, and he's one of those players who expects many more to show up to the competition.
Really good. So we're bringing the best players from a few states around. So as good as it gets, not at the pro level, in Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Tennessee, all around.
Action starts at 10 a.m. Sunday, and the playoffs are set to start around 3 o'clock. Also Sunday, the Western Conference Championship game in the Prospect League. The Cape Catfish have a chance to reach the Prospect League Championship Series. They will host the Lumber Kings at Kapaha. First pitch set for 6:35.